got royalty inside my DNA. I got canopies, got war and peace inside my DNA. I got poison, pain, and joy inside my DNA. 死んだ天性
Hinokami Kagura, or what is known as the Fire God Dance, is the strongest breathing technique ever. This breathing technique has been passed down from generation to generation by the Kamado family, from each generation and along with the Hanafuda earrings they wear. In the tradition of the Kamado family itself, Hinokami Kagura is manifested in a ritual ceremony that is practiced every year, in which the user of this breath will perform a fire god dance from sunset to sunrise the next day as a form of salvation and warding off various disasters. The fire god dance consists of 12 forms that will be repeated throughout the night, as shown by Tanjiro's father, Tanjiro Kamado. Tanjiro's father also once said to him that someone who has mastered this breathing technique will have enormous power, and even he can do the fire god dance as long as they want. When his fight against Rui, Tanjiro managed to use this technique by remembering the dance that his father had shown. Despite being the strongest breathing technique, there is much to know about this technique, and its relationship to sun breathing. Because it has a fairly long and complex history, so in this video, we will discuss the history of the strongest breathing technique, Hinokami Kagura, or what we call the Fire God Dance. Before starting, please support this channel so that it can grow by clicking the like, share button and subscribing. Let's just start discussing the history of the Hinokami Kagura technique. This technique comes from the first breathing user, Yoriichi Tsugikuni. When he was little, Yoriichi often saw his brother training with a master swordsman who was his father's subordinate. Seeing his brother's sincerity in practicing swords made Yoriichi interested in following in his brother's footsteps to become a samurai. Once upon a time, his older brother's swordmaster suddenly offered Yoriichi to practice swordsmanship with him. Even though it was Yoriichi's first time practicing swordsmanship, thanks to his natural talent and strength, Yoriichi managed to create an attack using breathing techniques and defeated his brother's swordmaster by a landslide. After that incident, Yoriichi actually felt guilty for hurting his father's innate nature and decided to stop being a samurai. Years later, when he grew up, Yoriichi had to experience a bittersweet experience after his wife and child were killed by demons. Considering these demons had destroyed the world, Yoriichi decided to return to practicing swordsmanship and was determined to kill all existing demons. In this effort, Yoriichi then joins a demon hunter organization and trains there. So that later he succeeded in developing the breathing technique he created. Yoriichi named his breathing technique the sun breathing technique. It was to remind her of the kindness of her mother, who gave her Hanafuda earrings with the symbol of the sun as a memory. Saw Yoriichi's extraordinary ability to the swordsman who joined the demon hunter organization, then asked him to train them because at that time these swordsmen did not yet have a strong attack to kill demons. Yoriichi then taught them about a breathing technique to increase attack. Yoriichi gives an example by using his sun breathing technique, but because the technique is so powerful, the swordsmen actually create various branches of Yoriichi's breathing technique, so that it became as we know it today. It can be said that the sun breathing technique of Yoriichi is the forerunner or the main basis of all breathing techniques used by the Hashira. Long story short, after becoming a demon hunter, a few years later, Yoriichi alone met the ancestor of the demons, Kimetsu Vs Muzan. After the two fought, Yoriichi issued 12 consecutive breathing techniques and succeeded in perfecting the technique with his 13th form. Yoriichi's attack almost killed Kimetsu Vs Muzan. Yoriichi even managed to cut all of Muzan's vital organs, but Muzan apparently managed to escape from the fight after blowing up his own body. As a result of his fight against Yoriichi, Muzan must have a lot of scars all over his body, and it makes him a grudge against the users of sun breathing. After failing to kill Muzan and his brother, who betrayed him by merging into a demon, made the Hashiras who had been taught by him actually expel Yoriichi from the demon hunter squad. During his exile, he once saved Luger's life from Tanjiro, namely Sumiyoshi. That incident made Yoriichi form a bond of friendship with Sumiyoshi, and gradually they became very close, like family. One time when Yoriichi last visited Sumiyoshi's house, he told all the stories of his dark past, and it made Sumiyoshi feel sorry for him. Yoriichi also told about his fight against the Demon King Kibutsuji Muzan and his failure for not being able to kill the Demon King. Luckily, Sumiyoshi's wife and children were able to comfort Yoriichi, thereby eliminating his guilt and sadness. Shortly before leaving the family, at the request of Sumiyoshi's wife and child, Yoriichi then showed all the sun-breathing techniques in front of them. Sumiyoshi, who saw it, then remembered and memorized the movement. Yoriichi also bequeathed his Hanafuda earrings to Sumiyoshi. Then Sumiyoshi promised Yoriichi to keep and pass on the sun-breathing technique as his gratitude and respect for all of Yoriichi's kindness. Heard the words of Sumiyoshi, Yoriichi, who looked happy, then smiled and said goodbye to the family. After his death at the age of 85 years in front of his older brother, Kokushibo, Muzan began ordering all his men to find the heir to Yoriichi's breathing technique and tried to finish him off. Years later, generations of the Kamado family then disguised the sun-breathing technique and replaced it with the tradition of the fire god dance, or Hinokami Kagura. They do this to preserve the inheritance of the sun-breathing technique and also protect the generations of the Kamado family by Muzan's men who hunt them down. Hinokami Kagura is then passed down from generation to generation using the 12 forms of dance that they show during the ceremony of honoring the sun god every year. When Tanjiro's family generation, his father named Tanjiro, once showed this dance to Tanjiro, who was still small at that time. Unfortunately, due to an illness that weakened his body, Tanjiro's father did not have time to provide details about this breathing technique. So Tanjiro can only remember this technique through a dance from his father. When he met the Pillar of Fire, Rengoku, Tanjiro also asked about the origin of this technique, and then he managed to get a little information through the ancestral book from Rengoku's father, until the final battle when against Muzan. After dying from the poison of Muzan's blood, in his subconscious, Tanjiro finally knows for sure the origin of Hinokami Kagura through the memories of his ancestor, Sumiyoshi. In the end, Tanjiro uses 12 forms of the sun-breathing technique when fighting Muzan. Although Tanjiro tries to perfect his technique into his 13th form, but Tanjiro doesn't manage to do that because of his weaker body strength. Even Muzan himself knows that Tanjiro won't be able to do it because he realizes how strong Yoriichi's power level is, so that no one can ever match Yoriichi. While the reason for the creation of the 13th form of the sun-breathing technique is because this form is the most effective form to kill Muzan. Using 12 forms repeatedly also aims to destroy 12 of Muzan's vital organs in the form of 7 hearts and 5 brains, which can move freely within the body. So that's the complete history of the strongest breathing technique, namely the sun-breathing technique, or also known as Hinokami Kagura. That is the history of the sun-breathing technique, or Hinokami Kagura. Thank you for watching this video to the end. See you in the next discussion.